So we are discussing governance and CSI today. These are quite interesting topics,
Yes.
right? So before we even start, I'm just going to go through a couple of things that I would just want to find out from you, and then we can just touch in terms of what it is that you do as well, right?
And also in business, right? If certain things are just gonna apply, like for example, as the CEO, right? If I do something wrong or I don't follow my own processes, how do I expect my subordinates or everyone else to then follow? It's double standards. There's no way you're going to do that.
You know, so in governance, when we go back to that, right? Leaders usually take risks seriously, only when something has gone wrong. How would you then advise? Because like you said, rightfully so, it's not governance should be in each and every single organization. It's not a tick box exercise. Yes, you need to be compliant for BE purposes to get specific business and all these other things. But can it be more than that? Can we stop being reactive? Hi guys, welcome back. You are watching Couch Talk with LHS, where we have meaningful conversations about HR-related topics, culture, entrepreneurship, as well as the ever-evolving workplace. I am your host, Memme Leepile, aka Boss Lady, and today we are joined by Memme Leepile, CEO of Bonotrim Consulting. How are you, ma'am?
Oh, good. Thank you. How are you?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today, actually. So we are discussing governance and CSI today. These are quite interesting topics, right? So before we even start, I'm just going to go through a couple of things that I would just want to find out from you, and then we can just touch in terms of what it is that you do as well, right? So let's talk governance. Before we drill down into the questions and all of the things that's expected, what is governance?
Governance is about how a company is run, right? In simple terms, you know, does the company have policies and procedures? Are they being followed? I mean, we've read or heard a lot about governance failures in the news. Companies like Enron, even NSFAS, right? Just the other day I heard that they're under administration because of governance failures. So governance is really about having policies and controls and internal processes, but following them. A lot of these companies had brilliant policies on paper, but if you don't follow that and there's no governance, then you'll have those failures. So that's basically what governance is about. It's about running an organization.
I think it's very important because one of the things that we also observe when you go to different companies is that you mentioned two specific things which I think run concurrently, that you have to have policies, but even with those policies, they need to be followed, because even if you have policies and nobody follows the policies, we're still having failures within the organizations.
Exactly. You can have brilliant policies
on paper, but nothing.
But
if nobody's going to run those, then it's a failure.
If you have, if you circumvent your policies, for example, if you have a policy that says you will sign and approve and somebody else does the payment, that's segregation of duties, right?
Absolutely.
We need those controls. But if you're going to circumvent that and not do it, on paper, that's your process, but you're not following it. So then there's no governance or good governance. So that's basically what it is. You're right.
Absolutely. So each and every single stakeholder internally has, you know, their specific role to play. So leadership also has a role to play, you know, in accountability, good governance within the organization. So maybe if you can just highlight what is the role of leadership in that particular aspect.
So for me, if I as a leader am not going to model that behavior, if I'm going to circumvent processes, for example, if I'm going to say just this instance, we're gonna overlook, we're gonna do this quickly, and we're not going to follow the process, your people are going to start doing that. And you'll see, even in HR, we talk about culture, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're a leader and you don't model that good behavior, you don't follow your policies and your procedures, and You just the way you run your business like a tyrant. The culture is going to be bad. It's gonna run through the organization. You're going to see that everyone in their roles will try and circumvent and not follow the procedure. So that's what good leadership for me is. It's about modeling that. It's about we talk about the outward leadership. What would you like as culture? There's an example that I think in the HR space they always make, right? They say, even if I bring someone else new into the organization and they're brilliant, right? And they have these
the competencies,
skills, everything. But the moment they come into this organization and things are done in a certain way, that culture is gonna absorb that person. They're not even going to end up doing, or performing at that standard that they used to, because I used to work at a company and like email, people would just not check their emails. I'd be like, no, I sent you an email. Oh no, nobody reads emails here.
My goodness. And that's the culture. It was the norm.
It was the norm, yes, and you get away with it. And even as a leader, if your people carry on like that, what are you saying? So leadership is very important. Everyone is watching you, and it goes back to governance. Are you doing what you say you are doing as an organization? Are you doing what you say you are doing? That's important.
And I think maybe one thing that I can also just add on as you are speaking, because it's just coming to mind, is that the consistency of applying.
Yes.
So if it applies to Memme, it should apply to Neo as well. It shouldn't be a case of, because I like her, it's got to be a different story.
Yes.
Because then governance in that case is out of the window.
Then it's out of the window. Yes, you're absolutely right. And also in business, right? If certain things are just going to apply, like for example, as the CEO, right? If I do something wrong or I don't follow my own processes, how do I expect my subordinates or everyone else to then follow? It's double standards. There's no way you're going to do that. And we must stop seeing governance really as a department, right? It's not a department. Governance is the through line that for everything that we do. It's not GRC, governance, risk, compliance, internal audit, separating it, right? It's and risk and monitoring and evaluation, verification, all of that. They're just different lenses, right, of the same frame, right? It's about a discipline. Yes. So that's how we must see it, and not try and separate and say
just in isolation.
Yes.
So it is inculcated in all the departments, in everything that we do in the organization. I think that's a very good way of explaining it, especially when you go into specific clients if they need assistance, just so that they can understand what it is.
Yes.
So as we're talking about that, can companies or organizations then be compliant on paper, and in practice, it's a complete different story?
100%. So. And just to also give you an example, so a company can be absolutely compliant on paper, and even compliant, like they're following the letter of the law. So we always say the letter of the law. You're following that law, you're not transgressing it. But that same company is unethical. So what would happen, maybe an example would be, for example, let's say a mining company. They're mining in a third world country, right? Or oil rigging or whatever, in a third world country where the law, where they would, for example, dispose of a certain chemical into the waterways. But they're keeping to the levels that the law of that country says, right? They're not transgressing that. Or they're taking from the environment, and they're not putting back, because the law doesn't say once you've mined you have to plow back or do whatever. So they're actually following the law. They're not doing anything that's wrong, right? But we know that, or even their internal R&D department, they know that even if we are getting that chemical into the waterways, that's to a level that's acceptable by the law of this country, they know that it's still not right. Because should they follow international standards,
it doesn't.
Exactly. So and we know, the community or stakeholders know, because you know it's wrong, right? You know that what it does to the environment, what it leaves, the earth looking like, or what the impact is. I mean, we look at in our country as well, the impact of mining and what has happened, and when you just leave the environment like that. So yes, you're following the law. That company is following the law, to the letter of the law, but not maybe to the spirit of the law. And also what they're doing is unethical, really, because you maximizing your profits, because maybe you want to get those profits, but you don't care. You don't care about what's right and wrong. You don't care about the community. When you leave that area, what is going to
happen? I think that's one of the biggest things, that there has to be that balance that's drawn, because I mean the buzzword right now, it's ESG. How do we save the environment? How do we go about, like you said, it could be right in a country, but according to the international standards, is it correct?
Exactly.
So now what does leadership then, how do they do the right thing, even if it comes at a cost?
Yeah, and you're touching on ESG.
It's the buzzword.
It's the buzzword, right?
Leaders currently, sorry to just interject, leaders currently in organizations have that as a KPI. That, I mean, we're not running in isolation. Within the organization, these are the standards. How do you incorporate them in your portfolio?
Yeah, but you see, the issue that I see in practice with ESG is that a lot of the companies, organizations see it as more reporting tool. Let's report to the risk agencies, the rating agencies, sorry. It's about that, instead of seeing it as strategy. And if you run your business, if you don't manage ESG, environmental, social, and governance, if you don't manage it as a risk or as an opportunity, right? And just reporting, then you just you're not managing your business properly. So for you, you're managing your accounting, really, right? So we need to see environmental, social, and governance risk as an opportunity for the business, right? So that's really how we see it, even in an organization, and as a leader, to know, right? Like the mining example. If you are in a certain community and you are mining, you're taking from this community, right? What are you doing back for the environment? But also, we're moving from coal to just energy. A lot of the people, they're not upskilled. When we're moving to electric vehicles and all these things, what's going to happen to those people that are not skilled, that work in these coal mines, for example, right? We need to think about upskilling them for the future, getting them ready. A lot of these are our parents, so we need to get them ready as well, not to be left behind, right? Those are the risks that you must think of. Those are things you must think of, because you're working in the community. And the community, that's social, that's your stakeholders, right? Even your employees, right? To say, how do you treat your employees? What do you do for them? What do you do for the community as the mine? To say, in this community, we're mining, for example, and I'm just using mine as an example, but mining from this community. Do we empower them? Do we build roads, clinics? Do we work with the municipality, for example, right? And that's your social license to operate. We call it a social license to operate. Because once you just come into a community and you take and take and take, and you don't work together with it, because you're not going to be mining forever. That's also another thing, that's right?
True. Yes.
But by the time you leave, or the 20 years, 30 years, whatever years you are there, you're working with the community and your stakeholders, your different stakeholders, and building, right? That's the social license to operate. Because once the community says, oh, this Neo's mine is doing 1, 2, 3, 4, no amount, and it goes back to that issue of compliance and ethics, no amount of compliance will save your reputation, because the noise that will be made, right? And then governance, we talked about it. That's the ESG. Governance. What are your governance? How do you run your business? Are you more about profit and abusing your people and the community, or that working together? So as a leader, ESG is an opportunity, and not just to look good, right? To say we are doing this with intention. We're not just doing this to gain BBBE points, although it goes back mining license and all of that, whatever license you're licensed to operate. To say, look, we're doing these things, but at the heart we care about our community. We have CSI, we have programs that upskill our people, education programs. I mean, I've seen clients that have so many programs that give back to the community and upskill, and that's a ethical company that's not just worried about profits or the bottom line. It's intentional, and the programs are really impactful. Because I always say, when someone comes and says, I'm not complying with BBBE, whatever, what can I do? Whatever you do, don't just give me a food package and say, but if you give me a skill, right? A skill that I can use, that I can have, that I can get a job, I can do something meaningful. That not only helps me, but my family, my community. It has a ripple effect. And same with, for example, when we need to get to a point, and CSI is that's why I love CSI, because you have to get to a point. Typical is a baseline theory of change, outcomes, inputs, impact. We have to get to a point where when we give or when we do things as a business as well, it's not a tick box exercise. There's meaningful change. There's impact, right? We need to move away now from saying, I gave 10 million for this, to I gave training to 100 NGOs on governance. 84% or 80% of them had got now access to markets, and those SMMEs as well. They contributed to the economy of that area, of that city or whatever, or community, because they became sustainable employers now. Do you know what I mean? So it's the impact. We must start looking at impact and sustainable impact, and not just ticking boxes.
I think that's very important that when we talk, because I wanted to ask that a bit later on, but we currently there, when we talk CSI, when we talk collaboration, integrating into the community, what is the impact? We must do things that are fit for purpose. There's a building, because you mentioned one important point. There's a difference between me giving you a food package compared to giving you a skill that will help you have that full food package, continuously. So it's not a once-off. I'm giving you a skill so that you can utilize and grow more. Absolutely. In terms of that. But how did so in governance, when we go back to that, right? Leaders usually take risks seriously, only when something has gone wrong. How would you then advise? Because like you said, rightfully so, it's not governance should be in each and every single organization. It's not a tick box exercise. Yes, you need to be compliant for BE purposes to get specific business and all these other things. But can it be more than that? Can we stop being reactive? Absolutely. And start putting things, like we said, that are intentional. So what would you then advise on?
Absolutely. So I used to advocate, and whoever listens to this, remember my previous bosses when I was employed, they'll probably be like, that's her. She's always advocating for compliance and risk. So at least risk is always at the C-suite, right? You have your chief audit risk.
Yes.
And I always used to say, and I say to my clients, you need to have compliance as well, compliance risk management at the C-suite. And you ask an important question to say why when something has happened. So typical example, typical example would be in compliance. I tell my clients and I tell everyone, a risk hasn't materialized. You don't know if it's a risk. You know, ops, I worked at the mine. Ops, they just want to do their work.
Yes.
Don't come and tell them, this is a risk, you can't do this. Compliance says, they see you as a cost center. They're like, you're just costing us money. But once they understand, and I always tell my clients, if compliance also sits at the C-suite, and you look at compliance risk as well, and I'll give you an example. We have somebody looking just at the regulatory risk. So, for example, at the mine has the compliance universe is huge. So they have to comply with a lot of laws, and even the environmental laws. Something happens, you're in trouble, right? Now, take for example, now you're sitting here, you're the CEO, and you don't know that there's a white paper or there's a bill out there for comment, a new piece of legislation or bill that it's not yet law, it's out for comment, but it might impact your processes in future. Now, you don't know anything about it because you're not checking those bills. And if compliance is not coming to you and saying, hang on, this is not law yet, but in a year or even less, it might be law, and this is how it will affect us. That's risk management, that's being proactive, right? In the future, it's going to be a problem. Let us right now, so that's what we always advise even clients, let us look at how you can already set up processes so you comply, so that when it's law, it's going to be cheaper, you're not going to, there are ways to do things, and then you comply, so that by the time it's law, you're already complying and it doesn't disturb your processes. And maybe you actually transgress it and you don't know about it. There's, for example, like even Popia, right? If your accounting officer or the CEO can go to jail for 10 years. They can be fined up to 10 million, right? There's a reputational risk. Everyone talking about your company, you lose, your stakeholder confidence. So there's a lot. And sometimes it's because we don't have line of sight, and that's why we don't think it's a problem. Or sometimes we just think, actually, no, there's no risk. So it's only when something happens, the inspectors knock at your door, and be like, then you're like, we have a problem, right? So, yeah, risk management is quite important, and when you don't see it, it's very difficult to know something you can't see or just predict if someone is not telling you. Look, and as compliance, as internal auditors, as risk people, we're the ones that we want you to operate, but we want you to operate within the law so that you can continue doing what you're doing. We're just there to help you.
Yeah, I think it also just ties back because all of these things that you're mentioning are interlinked, because it also just ties back when we're talking about ESG. When we're talking about the fact that it needs to be in your strategy. It should not just be a tick box exercise. It means that your strategy should not be a once-off where you just set it up and then you just leave it as that. It's integrating different departments. Let's look at our risk management. If this happens, what could be the possibility? How can we circumvent that? Let's look at all those possibilities within the organization.
And I think with me, because I also sit on some boards, the advantage is that, when I sit, it's not just like, so something about risk, something about compliance. And when I was an auditor, that was the one time where it gave me such great insight, because as an auditor, you end up knowing the whole business.
The whole business, definitely.
They actually, internal auditors actually do make a great CEOs as well, but leaders, because they can say, okay, in HR, these are usually the risks, these are the processes, controls that they have that, they can see. So, and then there's the governance side, there's, knowing what it means to have good governance and all of that. So yeah, it really is good to
just have an oversight.
To have an oversight of that. Yeah.
But you're also a certified fraud examiner. What is that, and what would you give as advice to leaders of the warning signs that you should look out for?
So, I always say that when you have a risk right, or a warning sign, or a risk materializes,
Yes.
I always say that the signs will always stay in your culture. If you go back, you'll see, by the time that warning sign, if you go back, you can say, oh, this is where we went wrong, this is what has been happening. And I tell leaders that bad news travels fast. If you don't hear any bad news as a leader or bad things, I'd say you have a terrible, a dangerous blind spot, right? Because either your people are afraid to come and tell you, or management is feeding you good information. So that's number one for me. It's you must know your organization. Walk around, talk to the employees, even in internal audit. How we test control sometimes, it's walking around, it's talking to people, right? So that's for me number one. If you're not hearing, you're only hearing good things, it's a problem. It's a big problem, and so that's, for me, that stands out, because you can't just be perfect, and people are afraid to knock into door, open door policy and say, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, because they're either scared of you, or they think you're just not going to do anything about it because the culture is so bad.
It's so bad. So what advice would you give leaders then, as we stand in terms of governance, ethics in their businesses? Where would they start? Because maybe some people, we're dealing with people that are running small businesses where they might feel, this is not applicable. It is applicable. Culture is applicable in any organization. Governance is applicable in any organization, regardless of the size. But whereas you have leaders that don't know where to start, how do I start? What advice would you give them? Where do I start?
Yeah, so it's about empowering yourself, really, right? And I know with small business, it's also very difficult because we don't have the luxury of hiring a lot of people to advise us, or having, the HR manager might be doing a lot of other things.
Office manager, you're a finance person. So it's not like an in-depth, I just know a bit to survive.
Yes. But even in that space, what's important is to have policies, especially like your finance, to know, this is how payments are made. We have a bank account, we separate whatever. This is the process when we hire somebody. Even myself, I get paid even as a business owner, and those, they might look simple and small, but that's governance, right? To say we have meetings where we discuss employees, our workshops, and on our policies or whatever. We might not have a lot because we're small, or we're a big business, but we follow the processes and the rules. So that's the thing I would say, and also sometimes not knowing is quite dangerous, because previously, like for example, take Popia, right? We'd help them we'd help organizations with the implementation, right? And then the head wouldn't know, the CEO or the head of the organization wouldn't know that by virtue of their office, they are an information officer.
Of course. And
that means 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're thinking, no, I'm a small organization, I don't have to comply with Popia, and you're like, you do. and you ask them, what happens if you have a data breach? You know that you must, inform the information or the data subjects first. How do you separate your information, classify it or categorize it? Certain information is special personal information. It must be protected, right? Special protections, like especially minors. That's special personal information. If you're collecting it, you have authorization. All of those. How do you store it?
What do we process it for? So those are the things that we mentioned, but people forget about these things, or they don't take them seriously because it's not my responsibility. Especially at the C-suite, you are the information officer. Even if somebody within the organization breaches, you are held accountable.
Yes. So those are the things as a small business, just to understand also. We help a lot of NGOs with governance, because for us what's important is that if their governance is functioning, and they can get funding even from private sector and from the Department of Social Services or other agencies. the first thing that's checked is your governance. If your governance is non-existent, you're not going to get funding. So we want them to get funding because they do important work in our communities.
Yes.
So we always show them that you need a contract. Contracting is not bad. It shouldn't be daunting or scary. This is what this means. You might not have a sophisticated system, but let's use Excel. Let's get your process, let's get certain things in place, and that's governance. And you break it down to their level, and you actually see that, oh, is this what governance means? But we make it look so complicated. Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
So let's go back. I'm going to go back to CSI because I think this is also quite interesting. I mean, you are a recipient, or you were a recipient of the CSI bursary. So I think this is what also contributed to you doing what you're doing currently. So maybe just tell us more about that and what CSI is.
Oh, yeah. So, sure. I always say I am from the community. I know the community. I'm from a small mining town, and I am a recipient of a CSI bursary. So for me, that opened just the doors to everything, and that's where the impact comes from. I got that bursary, small town, got my degree, work, and I'm a meaningful employer, provide sustainable employment, right? So for me, CSI is that. It's not a tick box. Like I said earlier, we gave you a food package, we've given what we can. It's really about impact. It's about what you do to change others' lives, the contributions we do or we make, to everyone. Yes.
I can also just confirm, or just, as you're speaking, I mean, I'm also a recipient of a CSI program at one of the companies. Yes. I'm going to just call them by name because I think they did a brilliant job.
Yes.
I really think they did a brilliant job. So I was a recipient of Metrofile.
Okay. Yes, I know Metrofile.
You know Metrofile.
Yes.
I think they did, because when we talk about impact and we talk about purpose, I see it in me as well. As much as they assisted, it wasn't about the money. What is it that we just throwing money at you?
Exactly.
It was impactful. I mean, I had somebody that, you're starting a business, it's scary, you don't know what, I'm just going in this thing and I'm thinking, I don't want to go into corporate, let me start something, let's see how it goes, but I've got a plan.
Yes.
They were there, in terms of support, in terms of moving around. And the impact thereof, if I think about it, because I started the business 7 years ago.
Wow.
They gave me a contract, not because, I was part of, the recipients, it was because they gave a specific skill and they're now using me as a service provider for 7 years.
Wow.
So that just shows that for them it wasn't a tick box exercise. And the responsibility was also to me that you're getting all of this, what are you going to do about it? So the community also has, as much as people have responsibilities, but what are you doing about it? It's not about people throwing you with money. It wasn't about the money. It's about how do you use the skills that you are getting from those particular companies.
Beautiful. Yes. We see it even with ESD, enterprise social development. Just taking a company and under incubation or whatever.
Absolutely.
That's just the contribution, but it's very meaningful, like you're saying, and the unemployment rate is so high.
It's bad.
It is just staggering, and that's the youth not working.
Absolutely.
It probably yesterday I was talking to my team saying, how do we solve some of these problems? Because these people would get funding and they must get the graduates, and they get them, they give them the training, they're getting a stipend, but then after a few months or a year that they're supposed to have them, they check out. They're not absorbed into the economy. It's just we just regurgitating this thing, and somewhere we need to solve this problem. It's just not working. We can't carry on like this, right? Do an internship, now you're home, next bunch comes in, it's almost like we really don't care. we're not creating sustainable employment. Yeah.
No, that's true. I'll give you an example. We also just, taking interns within the organization. I've started with that just so that we can at least give back. And it's about the skill. And I say to the interns, I'm going to treat you like employees. Because I'm going to show you what the real life
is about.
What
you're going to get out there.
One of the interns had said to me, I'm appreciative of the opportunity because this is the first internship where I feel like I'm part of it. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. This is my third internship.
And I'm gaining the experience.
And I'm gaining the experience that I'm required to do. To gain, because I said to them, it's not about you coming in making us coffee. No. I make my own coffee. Don't worry about that. It's about you here make use of the year. If you want to come here, shine, you're just coming in and going. It's on you. We will give you what you need to do, but you also need to play your part in that particular instance. I want to go back to. You've written an article. I think this topic is just getting me so excited. You've written an article on the Executive Leadership magazine, right? About CSI, where you're coming from and stuff, and what it is that you do within the organization. One of the things that stuck with me was when you're going into these particular organizations, right? You're saying to leaders, we're not here to validate. I think this is very important, and I'll tell you why. We are here to verify. What I see in businesses is that when they get an external service provider, especially let's say HR, we're getting you, we're paying you, you must agree with what you do. No. You got me because you want me to help you ensure that governance is correct, your employees are happy, you are making profit. That's why you got me, not to validate, but just to make sure that I really love that.
And that's the thing with us who are outsourced, right? Because you are hired by this person, really, they pay your paycheck, and it's almost, it's like, now it's almost like, are you throwing the line? But it's important to say, this is how I help you actually, because you have blind spots. I'm going to show you. I'm not going to validate things that are wrong. I'm just going to, it's important.
It is important. And I think, especially when it comes to, when you're working with consultants, because we would have the starting relationship, would do the new business development, and we would account manage the profile. However, you've got consultants that are working on the profile, and they're very scared in terms of saying, you're not trying to pay our contract, we don't want to lose the business. But I think I have an open relationship with the clients to say, yes, I may sometimes say things that you don't like. However, it's my responsibility. Because if things fall through the cracks and I didn't warn you about it, you're going to come back to me and say, you are the specialist. Why didn't
what happened?
So it's one of those things where the relationship has to be there. It must be open, must be transparent. They must understand that you got us here for the betterment. And some of the processes, I know, they're tedious. Some of the processes, you just want to get rid of melodies. But we can't do it like that. There's processes, governance that we need to follow.
Absolutely.
So the impact, we keep talking about impact within the conversation because there's a reason why we are doing specific things that we are doing within the organizations, specifically with CSI. How do you measure the impact of your specific programs?
It's basically what I said earlier, to say we're not going to measure input. We gave 10 million and we need to get to a point where we measure output, right? The legacy you've left behind. Like I said, you've trained 100 organizations on governance and ethics, but how do we measure? We say 80% of those received access to markets. There's a program that we were verifying for one of our clients, and it's actually beautiful, where they teach them about farming. And thereafter, they have their own farms, and they even give them access to markets, selling their produce to like Spar and these other companies. So that's how you measure, to say we've trained so many undergraduates, but also so many have been employed, or this is how they contribute. There are some unintended consequences, and that's even more beautiful. Like you get a bursary, some students get bursaries, and they say, actually there's change from that. I could help my family, I could have transport, I could do this, but I'm employed, and I contribute meaningfully to the economy, tax, all of those things. I have work, and maybe also you start a company like you, where you employ people. So that's legacy. Those are the outcomes, the impact that we want to see, not just, that's measurable, that's more important. It shouldn't be about accounting.
I've done this, and that's where it stops. I think the conversations need to be different with organizations. That yes, I've done from A to Z, but let me just at least monitor. Let me not handhold as such, because through that process that's hand holding.
Yes.
But after that, once you let go, you just don't cut the umbilical cord and then it's done.
No.
Let's just take it as a process. Maybe those are the conversations that leaders should be having internally, just to ensure that the impact is
and a lot of my clients do.
That's great. Yes.
We also do impact assessments.
Yes.
And baseline. So a baseline would be as is now. What is in the community? There's so many households, so many people living in a house in this community. So many are unemployed. Is it headed by children? How many parents? How many work? How many clinics around the area? Other businesses? The unemployment rate? What is available? Right? Baseline. That what you're starting with, and then when we start your program as a company or business to say, we've implemented this, and you look at your baseline to say, when we started, this was these were the numbers. This program was implemented, and after 5 years or whatever, when we do that impact assessment, or after 3 years, show the numbers, the impact that has been done, and that's important. I always say, if you are a company and you go to your board and you say, we want to spend 10,000 rands on doing this program, and every year we give you 10,000 rands, how are you justifying that? Our justification is, look at the impact. Yes. Look at what we've done. Look at this 10,000. Look at this 10 million. These are, and showing, and that impact assessment that shows. That's the numbers telling the story, the change. Yeah, and that's legacy.
No, absolutely. Maybe just to close it off, I know we've been speaking about things that are done incorrectly or wrong, but just maybe to highlight, what are some of the things that are done, wrong by leaders within the organization when it comes to CSI?
Sure, I think it's more what I see sometimes. It's like it's a problem. Let's just give. How much must we give? What are we getting? And obviously, look, there's nothing wrong in maximizing, right? To say, look, if we made so much profit, or we're supposed to give back in terms of triple BE or license to operate, there's nothing wrong in being strategic, to say, okay, we want to put this money in under these courses, or this is how we deal with it. It makes sense. If I decide I'm rather going to give Neo's company funding or fund their programs, because they also have, maybe for example, Section 18A. I also benefit tax-wise.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And we can give more. So there's nothing wrong in looking at your work and what you do, and just aligning and making sure. But it shouldn't be, I need to comply now, BE, what's happening? Because what we've also seen is that there hasn't, as much as there's been transformation and government forced transformation, there also has been none, right?
Yes. That's a topic for another day.
That's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
And also, even as a business person, if someone tells me, you need to hire all these other people, maybe, or you need to get more youth in management.
Yes.
You, as a business owner, we wanna, we're very territorial. It's my business. Now I must get people in, and oh no, we must get disabled people with disabilities, and it's just really about inclusivity, right?
Yes.
And it's about advising. And when we do triple BE and all of that, we advise clients. Okay, you understand, I'm also a business owner. I don't want to be told give my business to whoever, but there's certain ways you can do this.
Yeah.
Enterprise and social development. There are other areas in the triple BE scorecard that we can.
That you can maneuver around.
Yeah,
yes.
but we need to transform.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. I mean, we need to be honest about those conversations. And that's where I said the conversations, the openness, the transparency would also help.
Yes.
Memme, thank you very much. So just touching into Benetrim, what does the company do? I mean, you shared quite important information. And if there's leaders that are sitting there that don't have certain things and they would want to start, being compliant, they would want to start having proper corporate governance structures in place, how do they get in touch with you? So maybe just start telling us about what the business does and this different services that you offer.
Yeah. So Benetrim, we offer turnkey solutions when it comes to CSI, your corporate social investment. So like I said earlier, from your baseline studies, we have some people that have worked for the Department of Stats, or statisticians, M&E people, and the likes. So then we do, from your baselines, we do impact assessments, we do monitoring and evaluation, very important stakeholder management. I know earlier we spoke about it.
And it is critical.
Stakeholder management, business development. We also do within this. We do a lot of, and I never talk about it a lot. Annual reports and impact reporting.
Okay. All right.
Been doing integrated reports for companies and writing. I think my writer told me the other day, we need to get more writing work, we do that. Board services, even outsourcing of company secretarial work. So we also offer that. We do training, compliance and risk.
Okay.
That's, my love. And what else am I forgetting? I don't know what I'm forgetting. But
how can they contact you?
How can they contact?
Yes.
Yeah, so on www.bonitrimconsulting.co.za, and then I think my telephone number, I've got an office number.
That's fine. We'll share it.
Yes. Yes.
But thank you very much, Memme. I think this was a very insightful conversation. You guys doing a great job in that, because I mean, like we said, some people miss. I need to run an organization because I need to have profit. We forget about culture, we forget about governance, we forget about risk within the organization. We're just reactive, So it's quite insightful that sometimes when you're listening to such podcasts or you're watching, it's a moment of reflection. Look at your internal processes. Am I doing it? How do I get somebody? I don't have money to hire a full-time person, but then how can I get in touch with somebody that can advise and that can help me in terms of getting, on the right track with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute
made me so comfortable. I was worried.
I'm glad. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Like I always say, you don't have to take everything from the podcast, but at least take one thing with you. And I think from the conversation, one thing there's a couple of things actually that stood out, but one thing that we really need to forget, specifically as business owners or leadership in organizations, is that governance is very important, and it doesn't have to have difficult systems. I mean, we can use whatever it is available within the organization to make sure that we are compliant, to make sure that we are a success within the market that we're operating in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, bye.